I'd like to introduce our first panel. Our first panel is on open data innovations and really thinking about kind of the positive impacts on the use of open data, particularly in community collaboration, access, and insight. Really excited to have three excellent speakers here today on those topics. Jean-Noe Landry, Bob Lytle, and Nathan Childs. I'd like to start off by inviting Jean-Noé to give us some kickoff comments there. He's the lead of climate data, the Climate Data Hub at Concordia University, and he's joining us virtually, so we'll toss him on the screen. Jean-Noé, over to you.
Hey, everybody. So nice to join you today. I'm joining you from Montreal, and yeah, it's just a great opportunity to be able to stay connected to the open data community. So when Yuri reached out to me, I wanted to kind of seize the opportunity. And as we know, the open data kind of conversation has moved through a lot of twists and turns over the years, and I've been involved in the open data community for, I'd say, over 10, 15 years now. And so what I want to share with you is, like Samir said, some experience around developing the Climate Data Hub for Greater Montreal. And so knowing that that I approach this innovation, however we want to call it, from an open data perspective, I want to tell you kind of a bit of the story or the journey of how we got to kind of a milestone this week where the Montreal Climate Data Hub was officially launched at the Montreal Climate Summit, which is the main climate event, multi-stakeholder, multi-sector in Montreal. So it's the third year running. And so, but let's take a bit of a step back. So after I was leading Open North, ended up in New York City at Columbia University at the Climate School, and really kind of thinking about kind of like my own positionality, my own leadership in the open data space. Kind of thinking, what could I do that could be helpful and useful after I come back to Montreal? And the initial conversations that I had, so I got involved at Concordia University, and they were telling me, hey, we have some funding, seed funding from a local foundation to put in place a data studio at Concordia that has some focus on access to data or even ESGs and whatnot. Like, okay, data studio, what does that mean? That can mean pretty much anything you want. So I love it. You're kind of giving me a mandate to kind of go around and talk to people about what could be the value added of a data studio. And we know the certain kind of like barriers around like even talking about data. And I knew that I wanted to kind of do something that would be contributing to an ecosystemic approach to tackle climate change. So the first thing that I did was really kind of get a sense of like, who is enabling a type of collaboration that would lend itself to bringing different stakeholders together around a common vision of what and how data could be shared, collectively or collaboratively. So of course, you end up talking to the city. They have the climate action plan, they're developing their KPIs, they're measuring, tracking emissions, they have a number of different initiatives. Then you go and you talk to different researchers, they have their funding, their own methodology, their own kind of interests also institutionally. End up talking to the nonprofits and kind of environmental justice alliances. And they're looking at it less maybe from a specific kind of quantitative data, looking at it more from like an advocacy perspective, a lot of emphasis on storytelling and different techniques and approaches to storytelling on, what's the lived experience on the climate kind of front. And then the private sector that is, kind of unpacking and kind of wrestling with the different levels of like compliance and reporting mechanisms around their emissions data as well. So the key player there, so these are all different sectors, different interests, different ways of looking at kind of like data. The key kind of stakeholder that I looked at was from a collaborative perspective, was the Montreal Climate Partnership. And so the Montreal Climate Partnership as an organization has the mandate to bring, convene stakeholders together in a way that is supportive of Montreal's climate action plan's implementation. And one of the things that they do is organize that Montreal Climate Summit that I mentioned earlier. And so I reached out to them and I said, okay, so you have these different working groups on building efficiency, energy efficiency, transportation, mobility, waste management, water management, name the different kind of domains or sectors where emissions data is being kind of measured. What's your data strategy? That's the question that I asked. What's your data strategy to convene these stakeholders together? And how do you know that the stakeholders that you're convening within these groups, these working groups on these different verticals, have access or even know what data they should be kind of using to reflect together to support Montreal's climate action plan on these different themes? Well, that's a good question. That's basically what I got. That's a good question. Let us think about that. That's kind of like the answer that I got. And when they came back to me, the Montreal Climate Partnership, they asked me, actually, Jean-Noé, could you help us maybe build a dashboard, an emissions measurement dashboard to help us kind of track our progress? I was like, probably don't want to do that. Probably don't want to commit myself to building kind of like technology, because what I was finding out is that the real issue is that we had almost like a data deficit in the Montreal ecosystem, a data deficit from a granularity perspective, from a quality perspective, even access perspective. So to me, I mentioned this terminology because we've, as a community, the open data community has been, quite good at kind of naming the shift between the open by default, publishing with purpose, kind of like paradigms. And to me, it looked like we were in the publish with purpose and not even know what data we should be accessing. And so what I told the Montreal Climate Partnership is that how about we develop a consultation process, so consultative process, and really kind of unpack, the pains and the gains of accessing more data, some of which would be open data, but not all of it. So looking at that spectrum. So I'm naming that terminology because I know that this is part of our community as open data practitioners. And surprise, surprise, long story short, we ended up with a concept and we collaborated with Open North in that process. We ended up with a concept around a data collaborative, a data partnership, a data trust, however you want to call it. So a hub model that would have as its kind of mission to facilitate the interoperability or the alignment of the human dimensions of collaboration, the technology, and the data. And I named that because of that 3 different layers. So that these just layers of collaboration that needs to be facilitated. Obviously need to kind of build the digital infrastructure. And so we're opting for CCAN, we're already kind of moving in that direction with Open North. And then the people or human kind of interoperability, I would say, kind of brought to light a type of like competencies and skill set to facilitate and to understand the intersectoriality, the transdisciplinary, that kind of transorganizational kind of collaboration layer that was required in order to build a climate data hub to facilitate that data sharing and data access. And I guess I would just kind of leave. And so this week was the launch. The city has endorsed it. We have multiple universities now that are seeing how we could bring value in facilitating data sharing between universities and researchers so that we don't duplicate efforts. So it's kind of shifting mindsets around like proprietary data or research kind of focused data that has some inhibiting maybe clauses around data sharing. We're prototyping an approach with a cohort of private sector enterprises or businesses that are already moving in a direction of developing their climate plans, collecting data, sometimes data that they don't have good analytical kind of capacity, and moving in a direction of kind of connecting them together so that we can build that collective intelligence so that businesses are able to compare each other with their emissions data that would be shared into the hub. And then for the city of Montreal, it's also providing a digital space of collaboration with that digital infrastructure and the facilitated approach that they just don't have access to right now. And we've got the endorsement and the support of different major kind of players in the climate space, like Hydro-Québec. So around they're the main kind of state utilities company on electricity. So electrification becomes a part of this. Énergir, private sector, also a utilities company. We've got the Montreal port, so the harbor. And all of these are gonna, as a starting point, because we want to build the technology, but at the core, we know very well that we need to build that data governance kind of process. And so the partners are being brought in to develop the data governance model. And as we're doing this, we're also documenting case studies around to better understand, not with the attempt of creating or developing a data inventory systematically, because we won't be able to do that, but through a case study approach, kind of document what's working, what's not working around data access and data quality and interoperability, so that we can identify kind of pockets of kind of collaboration sectorially and intersectoriality from an intersectorial perspective as well, where the Climate Data Hub, it creates the enabling conditions for that type of like collaboration around data sharing. So it's the beginning of kind of the next phase of what we're about to do in the Montreal kind of ecosystem. We're designing this with Open North and other researchers and folks that you all know, like Professor Tracy Loriot is involved in this. And we're documenting it to be adaptable to other communities. So I can imagine a DIY type of like toolkit, to build other climate data hubs. And hopefully we get to a place where we can start talking about interoperability across communities as they're measuring not only emissions, but also sharing data to meet their adaptation and resilience goals as well. So I'll stop there. I'm happy to take questions and whatnot, but just wanted to share kind of our story here in the Montreal context. And again, looking at ways of being able to connect this work to other communities across Canada.
Thanks so much, Jean-Noé. We'll give you a round of applause in the room. I don't know if you can hear that, but really appreciate it. I love that chat about collaboration that you've had, and I know that's something that we're going to dive into, particularly with Bob. So we're going to talk to Bob Lytle, who's the CIO of Rel8ed Insights, and Rel8ed Analytics, and we're really excited to have you here. So Bob, thank you.
So Jean-Noé, you can't see us, can you? I could see him looking out here. So I'm Bob, and I will find this. I'm going to have the same. It's the top button, right? No, it's the middle button. Let's see, does it work? Oh, different remote. That's why. The big green one. Got it. So I'm Bob from Rel8ed. I was reflecting with Connie here, and Paul, who's not here yet, but we'll see him this afternoon. This is, for us, our company is almost 10 years old now, and we are an open data company, started in St. Catharines. Our very first presentation was at this conference in 2016, and lots of stuff has changed, and some stuff hasn't changed. Kevin helped us out in the early days. You were running the data lab here at Communitech, or the Data Hub. Connie, you were our first customer. Jean-Noé was at Open North, which was really excited. So, and frankly, back in 2016, we could all see Nathan's chin, which I'm not sure, lots of things changed. I had, dark hair at the time. So Rel8ed is a commercial company, and you'll notice there's a little name underneath called COFAS. We were acquired, so a Canadian startup acquired by a French multinational insurance company last year. Based on the power of the open data that we gather, I wanted to share with you, just super brief, what we do as a company, because what we do, if you're in government in Canada, you are in our product. We are a product that is almost exclusively built by gathering open data from every source imaginable in the world to build what's called a business or commercial credit database. And a lot of the stuff that you see here is stuff that you guys are putting out, whether it's ESG data that we talk about, or contracts, or permits, or what the business is doing, or sanctions and alerts and things like that. Some of you are probably customers of a shop called Dun & Bradstreet, as an example, very famous large data broker. We landed Dun & Bradstreet as one of our premier clients in 2017 based on the power of what we learned how to do here at Communitech and in other places in the Canadian ecosystem. So what I wanted to share with you, if you are involved in finding, gathering, cleaning, presenting open data to the market, companies like Rel8ed exist to gather that data and then make valuable products out of it. I'm going to talk to you today about our new ESG product, but I want to highlight to you guys, there are businesses out there that use your information, sometimes in ways that you don't know about, sometimes in ways that you might have doubts or queries about. Over the years, we've been brought in front of your team and other teams like at CODS to say, hey, why are you using this? What are you doing with that? Are you being safe with that? I mean, it's all part of the ecosystem, and we're part of the downstream impact of smart release of data. So I just want to highlight to you what companies like us do with your information is we mix and merge it with other information. Our key product is called Advanced Business Database on the left. All the open public items, that's what we get from you and from governments around the world at every level of government, whether it's from municipal all the way to well, let's not call the United Nations government in quite the same way, but data up and down the chain is combined together. So the next time you think about saying, is anybody really using this? The answer is yes. There are companies, big and small like ours, maybe bigger now, companies huge like Dun & Bradstreet who live on the data you have. I was sharing with Kelly in North Bay what happens when a government institution like British Columbia decides to release court records and does it year over year over year over year, and then one day decides to just stop. And they go, we don't do court records anymore. And a significant part of the data economy kind of trips over themselves because they had built products depending on BC legal data, and it's no longer there. That's an important part of your remit too. And one of the things Kelly and I talked about is the feedback loop of being able to understand for you who is using what you're putting out, and then for us to say, well, here's what we're doing with it, give us more, or could you change it, or could you fix it? And goodness, if you decide to stop doing something, giving people enough time to know that that's what's actually happening. There's mostly good stories, not bad ones, but that's what happens. Look at the other things that companies like ours do that is not open. It may be publicly available like internet data or APIs that are out there. It may be things that are internal to companies, or even on the far, far right, licensed information, things that we buy. We buy data and synthesize it with open data and then build a product and deliver a product to the market. What I want to show you today is the ESG products that we put together, which fits right within the space of the kind of data that you guys, Jean-Noé talked about in his Climate Hub. Tova talks about helping local companies divulge this information. Every blue item here is a piece of open data. We can't build a product with just open data, but we can synthesize it with third-party information or annual reports or paid ESG reports or cybersecurity rating. If you think of what ESG is all about, it's not just climate. We're talking about climate today a lot, but we're talking about things all the way from climate to who are you shipping to? Are you working with companies overseas that are doing child labor? What's the composition of your board? Do you have females and minorities in a decision-making place in your executive suite? Those are all facts that go into a product like ESG. Our job at Rel8ed is to find all of this stuff, bring it together on behalf of customers, and sometimes you see here, discover new products. So in the process of building an open data informed ESG product, starting in Canada, but a global product, we discovered that there's a brand new one. I'll tell you about that. We're excited to start launching. So this is just for you guys. You'll see the slides if you want to get it from Yuri or Nathan. But the concept is I can take open data plus proprietary data and put it together and look at a refrigeration company, understand their emissions, understand their board composition, use proprietary data to understand their credit risk, right? And all that kind of stuff merges together. We asked, Tova said, you know, what are the reasons that people use this data? One of the big ones, it is a money-making one, large companies are being challenged by their boards to only work with suppliers that hit certain measures, certain bars. The stock market has an entire subsector that is all about investing in companies that have a certain profile, ESG profile or otherwise. Companies make money based on the kind of data that you're putting out there and make better decisions that can drive policy decisions throughout the government. I would honestly, throughout the economy, I wish it did it more in the government. It's interesting, the biggest companies, Walmart has a supplier diversity approach that is powered by products like this. More governments in Canada should be more active in looking to hire diverse suppliers. And diversity it's not just about racial or gender or anything else, it's about companies that are local, right? What happens when you buy from a local company? It doesn't cost as much to get the product there. And if it doesn't cost as much, that's a climate benefit, right? It also helps the local economy. Same thing for companies that are engaged in using clean technology or leveraging their footprint in a different way. If I make those determinative choices on who I'm going to work with, I can move the needle in some interesting ways. Let's leave aside the political debate over is ESG good or bad. You could tell I'm from Chicago, right? We started a Canadian company. I've got the Chicago accent. It's a nuts down there politically, as you guys well know. People debate over this. My state won't do anything with ESG, and then the other ones go do this, and it's all crazy, right? But underlying, businesses need this data to make smart decisions, and they can drive better decisions and move the needle in the market. So companies' data is presented in surprising and interesting ways to move markets or to change policy, to change culture maybe. And now we'll get into the political side of, well, what culture should we have? And all those things are great things. I loved how Kevin and Tova played both sides of that coin. It was very fun to listen to. So, this is cool stuff. This is what we do. You guys get it. You put out data. We take it. We synthesize. I want to show you just a couple of looks of things that companies like us do in the future with the things that you guys give us. So one of them is we're launching later this year a diligence portal where you can go and look at any company that is large enough, and I'm not talking thousands, we're talking millions of companies, and talk about both their climate and their social impact and their governance impact, how they behave as a business. And businesses will purchase access to the portal and be able to understand more about those companies. So that's one. A second is to allow customers to make their own products and their own metrics or scores. This is our system. This is called the Related Diligence Platform. It's kind of our flagship that led to us, that's what we built over the last 8 years. But the ability for a customer to be able to set their own scorecard and then say, yes, I want to work with a supplier in such and such a way. I want to see ones that have a rating that looks kind of like this. We always do academic work. There was mention earlier, Kevin talked about, these co-ops that come in. Our company was built almost completely on interns, starting at Brock University. We have had a couple from Waterloo, mostly more in the Niagara and Toronto area. Had a lot of folks from Ryerson come through U of T. When we moved to the US and opened a US arm, I said move to the US, it's not fair. We're still a Canadian company. We have a nice US office. Connie was going to give me a hard time when we got acquired. She said, you're not moving, right? But we partner with universities. So in this case, this spring, we took a team from Rochester University and Brock, put them in a room together with IBM and said, why don't you use IBM's AI to go and eat up all of this ESG data and see what you can do with it. What was really cool about it is our ability to take this data in, use AI, RAG models, and all the other stuff to basically give an ESG rating on any company in the world. The cool part about it is we were able to show that you can beat ChatGPT, using this technology and customize things, which is kind of cool for us in the market. So big companies like IBM have whole divisions on sustainability, and that's exciting for us, the little open data company from Canada, feeding into a major global company and doing something kind of special. Believe you me, when we show that IBM stuff beats ChatGPT, they're quite excited. Right? The last thing I just want to show you here is on clean tech. I mentioned there's a new product that came out of our research into ESG open data, and we are about to release the Canadian Clean Technology Database based on a lot of that same technology. And what's really cool about it is your ability to get information into our hands, our ability to synthesize it with companies like D&B ends up as a brand new solution where you can think about clean tech companies in a very, very different way. And in doing so, it helps both the Canadian government, it'll be one of our first clients for this, but also businesses who want to work in the sustainable space. Lots more to talk about, but Samir's given me the hook. So happy to answer questions after Nathan comes and talks with us. Our home is Niagara and the Niagara Open Data Portal. I'm really excited to hear kind of some of the new things that you've done, Nathan. All right, thank you.
That segue was perfect. Thank you so much. Really excited to invite Nathan Childs, the Open Data Lead at Niagara Region up. As Bob mentioned, their home is Niagara, so really excited to hear from Niagara and see what they're doing. Nathan.
Thanks, Samir. We're really excited to be here today too, and I'm trying to determine if it's not panic because I've been used to being up in the room for the first little part of today's session. So I'm use the term we as the collective term because I'm representing Niagara Open Data Community Consortium. We're a group of local area municipalities, educational institutions, community service and nonprofit organizations across Niagara Region who are committed to opening Niagara's data so it can be used to, now I lost my, be used to identify issues and address challenges that occur in our municipality. There we go. Our organization, of course, I'm the one that's going to have technical problems. I swear I know how to use this. I'll just let that change. We also operate a open data catalog, NiagaraOpenData.ca, and currently we're on trajectory to be a single point of access for all of Niagara's open data. Our partnership includes publishers. You'll see on the slide behind me, these are our active members within our community providing data through NiagaraOpenData.ca, as well as organizations that are interested in sharing data, may not be at the point where they can, or organizations that also have an interest in seeing that data is accessible across Niagara Region. You'll see we've got Rel8ed and some other big hitters kind of in our communities, municipalities, police services, other educational institutions there. We all share the same objectives. One, to increase access to data across Niagara Region, as well as improve data literacy, so the data that we put out there can be used and to address those issues and challenges. And we're also looking to kind of build trust within our data so that it can be integrated into data decision making and also spark more innovation. I'm glad that a lot of the discussions today kind of hit on history. We owe kind of our existence to GOOD. In 2012, the first couple of open data catalogs started in Niagara. They were not connected. There wasn't a lot of discussion going on, but in 2012, when GOOD was at Brock, the administrators of those catalogs and members of our community kind of got together in a hallway, had a discussion, and started talking about how we could do it different so that we could improve access to data. And What became of it? A year later, NiagaraOpenData.ca was launched. When we launched, we had 9 organizations providing data through us and 190 data sets. We've continued our efforts to expand our membership and improve the data that we're putting out. We currently have, just over 400 data sets and products available on our catalog now from our participating members. So why is this innovative? For us, we're really loose in the way we structure our consortium. There's no agreements, no licensing, and also no costs to our members. We've got a pretty cost-smart solution through CCAN to provide data. So we've kind of got a benefactor that takes care of that cost for us. We're also working together to eliminate the barriers for some of our smaller partners to provide open data. So we're working with our post-secondary institutions, organizations like Rel8ed Analytics to kind of support and build data products that can be shared through the catalog. Over the last year, we've continued to innovate and have just recently launched an enhanced version of NiagaraOpenData.ca with kind of features that were focused on improving user experience, as well as providing knowledge and tools for the community so that they can leverage the data on site, and also removing some of the barriers that would prevent smaller organizations from sharing their data with us. A couple of the key features that I want to talk about today are the data request system. So this is a feature that allows anyone within our community to post a data request, assign it to one of our publishers, as well as track the status of that request. Those requests are also accessible by anyone using our service, so they can see what data has been requested and comment on it as well. We're hoping that it'll make the release of data a little more efficient, allow us to meet our community's needs, and where we can't meet our community's needs, also let our community self-serve, so assist each other in finding the data that they're looking for. We've also implemented a data harvesting solution, so this allows us to connect and integrate data from other catalogs. We're looking to leverage this to connect to other data catalogs in Niagara Region, in our neighboring communities and across the country, to again become that single point of access for all Niagara Region's data. We're continually working to expand our partnerships, so we want to have more people participate, more voices around the table for guidance and giving us ideas as to where we can go in the future. So I want to thank you, but before I leave, I know if you want to kind of stay up to date on what we're doing in Niagara, we do encourage you to go and visit NiagaraOpenData.ca, as well as follow us on our social, so you can kind of stay up to date on new releases and information as we expand our program and our community.
Thanks so much, Nathan. I'm going to get you to stick around here and maybe ask Bob, and Jean-Noe is on the screen, so if Bob can come up as well. We've got a few minutes for questions. We've heard a lot of really great innovative stuff happening in the community around open data and collaboration. So I was curious if anyone had any questions from the audience, whether that's in person or virtually. I've got quite a few to start with, so I'm happy to jump into those. I think we have a question from Ushnish. Yuri, if you could pass that along, thanks.
Hi. So I get this sense anecdotally that there's been a stall in the open data movement in Canada. And I'm wondering from your different perspectives, what you think if you sense there's a stall, and what the reasons are. Is it that the producers are not producing the right kind of data? Has the attention of the citizen, the public, gone elsewhere? Yeah, what are your thoughts?
So I think what we're finding, there is a bit of a stall, yeah. Throughout COVID, a lot of resources at municipalities were redistributed to doing other tasks. At that point, Niagara OpenData almost ground to a halt. We were busy supporting public health with data needs, and a lot of staff were just redistributed to other services to keep things going. Beyond that, there's also resource limitations at a lot of our organizations. They just don't have the resources or qualified resources or the knowledge to get a lot of that data out there. So that's why we're working with our community to kind of eliminate those barriers and find other opportunities to kind of revitalize our own program and get more data out there.
It's a mixed theory that I will give you. Certainly as a consumer of this data, and we do it in bulk every single day, probably every week something falls away, right? So we get it, but wow, that hasn't been updated, or this link is broken. That's natural in the internet, right? So we do see some of that. I don't know if it's more or not, but we always kind of factor that into our business. There are parts of the open data movement globally that are stronger than Canada is showing today. I haven't noticed it enough to say, oh my God, we've got a really big problem, but it's something that we mentally factor in. I'd encourage you to look at this maybe in a glass half full way. In the past, the only place you got data was from the government, and you got this opened and it was good. Companies have started to release their own data too. And the reason they did that is because you guys did it first. So for me as a customer, I need data. I'm gonna get it in one place or I'm gonna get it in another place. I only could get it from you in the past. Now I can get it in the open market, sometimes free and sometimes not. We wouldn't be here had you not been releasing. So had you not started that then, we wouldn't have big companies agreeing to do that. So that's a slightly glass half full way.
Jean-Noé, I know you have been involved in the scene for a long time, and your work right now is really focused on climate data. Have you seen that kind of stall in your work as well, or in the communities that you're working with?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends how, like, there's different ways of answering that question, right? Because I mean, on the one hand, we could talk about, some metrics around the volume of data and whether or not there's more or less kind of open data that's being shared and available through, open data portals. But I think in many ways, it's kind of the softer side of kind of like the answer that I want to kind of name is that as a community, there's, because of the values that are embedded into the work that we do from an openness perspective, there is a case to be made that in the context of multiple different crises that are kind of simultaneously putting pressure on existing systems and institutions, the skill set of open data advocates or open data brokers or folks that have been kind of, building not just the data infrastructure, but the processes by which we understand kind of like the data kind of like ecosystems and what can be available or not. Those skill set, the brokering, the mediation, and I would even say the negotiation around accessing more data, those skill set are, I would argue, more needed than ever before. Because in a time of crisis, there's a tendency to close down because you want to make decisions faster. So we need to double down on open government and open data as a mindset, as an approach. And I think that's part of the collaboration kind of requirement now of being able to kind of rally together and meet these multiple crises kind of head on. So when we talk about understanding the context of the data, understanding the users, standardization, all of that, that's happening, but we may be kind of measuring the value of the open data kind of movement. We need to maybe kind of look at it a little bit differently as it's kind of weaving itself into different types of collaboration settings and contexts as well. So I just want to kind of bring out maybe a different dimension of how to address that question around whether or not the open data movement is kind of going down or kind of having a not having as much kind of salience. And I think the salience has evolved.
Jean-Noé, I want to follow up on that quickly. You mentioned about the skills and the capacity that the community is looking for. How do we build that? How do we reinvigorate the community that we have? to get to the point where we have the capacity and the resources and skills to do the work that we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of gets into kind of that kind of systems change type of like conversation, is that recognizing our own kind of posture and positionality. And one of the things that I loved the most when I was doing more kind of open data advocacy is finding, folks that I think you've been hosting at the event that have that particular vantage point, and who are able to kind of go inside public administrations and institutions and have that conversation around accessing data, and the empathy that is kind of coming into those types of like dialogues to understand the inhibiting kind of like factors or perceived risks around that. So I think it's just kind of like finding in ourselves kind of like an awareness that because of the values of the open data movement, we have a lot to contribute that goes way beyond kind of the technical kind of like interoperability, but really getting into the human kind of like interoperability. Those are like real skill set. And I think coming in to conversations with that mindfulness, where we're really good, I feel, the open data community, to kind of understand, from that institution's perspective, or that agency, or that that team's perspective, why data can't be accessible. Translating that and flipping that into kind of collaboration opportunities, that's kind of like a special superpower in a way that I think open data kind of like facilitators have had. And I think now's the time to kind of double down on those skill set.
For sure. Thank you so much. We've got an audience question here.
Yes, thank you. One of the challenges we have as an open data provider is really understanding how our data is being used. So it's interesting to hear from Bob, your company is using open data and putting it together with others. And you gave the example of BC turning off the tap, and that's how they found out how it was actually being used. Downloads isn't really a good example, because I think lots of people download it, look at it, that's not what I need. So I'm curious if there's insights from the panel on how a provider can measure the value and really how it's being used and the value it's providing, if there's any insights from your experiences with the varied backgrounds.
Bob, did you want to jump in?
I'll give you a super quick idea, and I'm surprised very few have done this. I did get a reach out from the Peel region. It says, hey, we see you're downloading our file once a month on this. Could you tell me what you're doing? Engaging, I think sometimes you might be afraid of reaching out to it, but there's technologies today where you could look at all the downloads and sort out the ones that are coming from the basement and the ones that are coming from an office park, and actually reach out to the company. Not as the government overseer, what are you doing? But I'm really interested in how to do better. I think it would be probably one of the best ways, Stan, just do the straight outreach. I mean, we're in the business, so you would expect us to be activists and come to you. Hey, what can you do this? Connie knows. Nathan, come on, man, what's happening with that data file? But the real companies you want are the folks at Scotiabank. Like, why are they downloading this? Very interesting. Wow, that's pretty cool, right? I think you can create forums and environments like this, but then attract folks from that aspect. And I think it would be probably one of the best things you could do, actively solicit. Most tech companies and most data customers, whether it's a firm or it's a bank, they'd actually be pretty happy to talk to you, especially if you have it on offer. Is there something else I could give you? Man, we'd love it. We would.
For Niagara OpenData, it's about having them around the table. So we regularly invite Rel8ed out to our meetings to kind of share their opinion, their insights. We've also included our educational institutions. We know there's an avenue for learning in what we put out. So they're sitting around our table letting us know and building out some of their own programs to leverage open data. Other avenues, yeah. Turning off the switch works sometimes, right? That's when you start to hear about it. We had a data set down for a while, and it wasn't until someone let us know from our business area that we hadn't updated it. We changed the back-end system, and things just didn't meet up on the catalog side. So they let us know, we get it fixed. And now we're encouraging them to participate, let us know more. one of the improvements that we've added to the catalog is looking for surveys. So we've got some avenues to collect information about our users. So getting an idea of who they are and what they're using our data for. Hopefully we'll start getting some responses. We're just out of the gate with it, but I think just creating those connections and keeping those connections going are key.
That's great, thank you. I know we've heard a lot today about connections and collaboration and really partnering with others. So I want to thank the panel. I want to thank Jean-Noé, Bob, and Nathan for giving us that insight on kind of innovations that are happening in open data. Thank you very much, really appreciate you.